like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review in the series, with today's game being Skeleton Warriors, originally released in April of 1996 in North America before coming out over here in the PAL region of the same year. It was also released on the PlayStation around the same point in time as well.
The death of its king, the heir to the throne, must be on guard from the sinister Baron Dark.
So once the game loads up, to my surprise, there was a pretty detailed video depicting the backstory for the game. So the King of Luminicity has passed away and Baron Dark decides he wants to get his hands on the Light Star Crystal, which is the source of all of Luminicity's power. As he sneaks into the chamber and takes control of it, he is confronted by Prince Justin. They tangle over the crystal, it breaks. Baron Dark is transformed into a powerful skeleton warrior with the ability to turn others with evil hearts into skeletons as well to do his bidding, whereas Prince Justin is transformed into Prince Lightstar, the only mortal in the realm with enough power to put a stop to Baron Dark and restore peace and glory to Luminicity.
The heroic Prince Justin has now become Prince Lightstar, the only mortal with enough power to battle Baron Dark and destroy his skeleton warriors.
So once you're on the main menu, you'll see you've got a choice of start and options. Heading into options, you can change the difficulty, you can check the controls and change them, and you can also test all the music and sound effects within the game too. So if you are new to my channel, what I do when I review a game is talk about how it looks, how it sounds, how it plays, its content and lifespan, whether it's still worth playing today, and if it's a Saturn game, whether it can make our PAL top 10 or even our worldwide top 10. Now, Skeleton Warriors was actually a real surprise to me because I'd never played this game ever before and I didn't know anything at all about it, and for some reason I thought it was a one-on-one Mortal Kombat style fighter, so it was actually quite a surprise when I turned it on and started playing to find out it was a side-scrolling hack and slash beat 'em up with some 3D shooter areas. So with all of that said and done, we need to get on to how Skeleton Warriors looks, and I was pleasantly surprised by the visual quality of this game. For an early 1996 game, I genuinely feel Skeleton Warriors looks pretty good. We've got a mixture of pre-rendered 2D graphics along with 3D graphics, and the Saturn does this really well. I've said this in the past, I feel games that employ this method on the console actually tend to look quite good, and Skeleton Warriors is no exception. We've got some nice animations with the main character and the enemies as well, and he moves really smoothly, which is sometimes a little bit of a surprise for pre-rendered characters. As well as that, I think we've got pretty decent looking levels themselves. There's multiple layers to the background, so there's that sense of depth, and there's enough variety in all the levels to keep you entertained visually as you progress through the game. The explosion effects are actually pretty decent on this game as well, but the downside visually for me is the 3D shooter levels. They look like they've been tacked on and they haven't had a whole lot of effort put in them. They don't really look very interesting. There's not much going on in them, and I genuinely feel that they've just been added in to give the game that sort of next gen feel for when it came out, to say, oh look, it's got 3D areas in too. But overall, casting that aside, I do feel Skeleton Warriors is actually a pretty decent looking game, and it runs very well as well for the time that it came out. So moving on to the sound effects and music, and I was actually fairly surprised in this area as well because I feel the game performs quite strongly. It's probably the strongest point about the game in all fairness, because we've got a pretty decent soundtrack that's got some quite epic sounding tunes to it that are befitting of somebody who's going on a quest to save a kingdom. I think they genuinely sound decent, and to go with that, we've got really good sound effects as well. Everything sounds spot on. The only downside with the sound effects being the fact that you're fighting so many enemies, they do get a little bit repetitive because you're going to be hearing them over and over again, but I can't deny the quality of them. So what I'll do is what I always do, give you a few examples of the musical tracks within the game. So moving on to the gameplay next, and the game is broken up into 4 distinct zones with bosses at the end of each and also 3D shooting sections breaking up the gameplay from time to time. In terms of how it plays in terms of a 2D hack and slash platformer, it's actually very good. You move with the D-pad, you can use your sword to attack, you can jump, you can throw projectiles, you can also have 2 special attacks saved up and you can choose between them with the R and L button and then fire those off as well. And there's a variety of different special attacks that you can collect when you play the game, so it's got a little bit of variety in that regard. You can also pick up projectile stars and also health items and occasionally extra lives as well. In terms of how well it controls, it actually controls really well. Controlling Prince Justin is really nice. He's sharp, he's crisp in everything that he does, and it genuinely just plays pretty decently. It's the kind of game that you can pick up, familiarize yourself with the controls really quickly, and actually just have fun and enjoy the game for what it is. Now, the 3D shooter sections do not play as well. Like I said, visually they feel like they're tacked on. They also feel like they're tacked on in the gameplay as well. It's got inverted up and down controls, which I don't really like in shooters, and you can't edit them. And these areas of the game do get quite boring and repetitive very quickly. None of the bosses are in these areas either. You simply just fly through the stage for a bit, shooting as much as you can and trying to avoid dying. So overall, in terms of gameplay, the platforming section's pretty good, the shooting section's not so much. So moving on to content and lifespan next, and we've got around about 20 levels here to play through with a few cutscenes in between to tie the story together, but unfortunately this is the game's weakest point because the game will take around about 80 or 90 minutes to play through in one go. You can't save it, you have to play through the game in one playthrough, and the game basically has no replay value. The only replay value here is if you want to play it on different difficulties, and that is it. And then for me, it's the kind of game that you're going to play through once and then never ever want to play through ever again. Whilst I was playing it, I was thinking this is the perfect kind of game that you would have rented back in the day when it came out for probably a couple of pounds for one night. Play through it in one go. You've played through it, you've seen it, you know the story, job done. You're never going to play the game ever again. So I really feel in terms of its replay value, there basically isn't any. In terms of the amount of content here, yes, there's a reasonable amount of levels, a few bosses, but again, it's not really a lot to see, and it doesn't take that long to play through the entire game. And like always, that leaves us with our 2 final questions. Is Skeleton Warriors still worth playing today, and can it make our Sega Saturn top 10? Now, if you're a fan of 2D platformers or hack and slash games or both, you may well find a level of enjoyment in having a playthrough of Skeleton Warriors. It's easy to pick up and play and learn, and you can have a relatively enjoyable time. It's not until later on in the game when it gets a bit annoying, when you're knocked off ledges by bad guys relentlessly firing stuff at you, that it gets a little bit frustrating. It's the perfect kind of game that you can play through in around about an hour and a half and enjoy your time with it. If you're thinking about going back to it though for nostalgic reasons or just to revisit it, it's probably not worth it, because if you've seen it once, there's nothing new to see here. Now, does it have the quality to make our Saturn top 10? You can see the PAL top 10 going up the screen as I speak, and you can see the type of games that are in that list. Really good stuff. And Skeleton Warriors simply doesn't have enough content or lifespan here to have any chance of challenging that top 10 whatsoever. But of course, these are my thoughts and my thoughts alone. If yours differ, or if you played the PlayStation version as well, is that any different to the Saturn version? Let me know with a comment down below, and like always, I'll be back in the near future with another Saturn review. Goodbye for now.